the news today is Princess Kate's visit to a women's prison in Cheshire, where she spent time with inmates and ex-prisoners at the mother-baby unit. The unit has been hugely successful at reducing the reoffending rate of female prisoners. Now, last year, the Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood said that prison simply doesn't work for women. And it's estimated that 70% of female prisoners reoffend, and when released, many are faced with homelessness or abusive situations. So do we need to look at an alternative way of dealing with women who have committed crimes? Janet, you've written about this so many times.
Something I feel,
and actually, a lot of people get in touch with you when you write about this.
It's something I feel very, very passionately about. And I know that I can be accused of having a double standard. Well, if a woman commits the same crime as a man, why am I arguing that women shouldn't be in prison at all? But I think we need to look at the kind of women who are in prison, and they come from the most disadvantaged section of society. Over half of them have suffered domestic abuse. They might not be incarcerated for domestic abuse, but it's something that they've tolerated in their daily lives. 2/3 of them are in prison for non-violent crime. A huge amount of them, up to 80%, are suffering from mental health issues. I can't see, if I'm brutally honest, what's going to be achieved by holding them in jail and not working out a way to stop them coming back. Because, as you said, 70% reoffending is a shocking statistic. The other factor is that women are held a long way from their families because there are fewer women's prisons. Consequently, if they get sent to jail, the families have to travel further, and these are families who haven't got a lot of money in the first place. So I would advocate, just in a sentence, that women serve a sentence for a crime they've been judged guilty of in the community, and part of the sentence includes education, and education in dealing with everyday life, like normal finances, reading and writing, literacy. These are all really fundamental.
But do you think as well, Janet, that there's a gender bias? Because, you know, of course, people are going to argue that if a woman commits a crime similar to a man's crime, they should both get the same sort of sentencing, equality across the board. But actually, the majority of crimes that women are committing, and the Justice Minister, Shabana Mahmood, has actually said that the majority of crimes that women are committing are small misdemeanours that men don't go to jail for. So there's an absolute disproportion also in the type of crimes that are sending women to prison. And it feels like women are sort of being penalised in a way and judged differently when it comes to the course of the law. And I think that's a really important aspect of it, because most of these crimes, 6-month sentences, 6 months in prison, what's it going to do? How's it going to reform you?
Well, this is the whole point. I think that one thing we need to look at is the fact that the people who work in prisons and the people in charge of prisons are also agreeing with what we're saying. Nobody is saying that it's working for women, which is, you know, there's no argument almost. And I think we've been stuck in the Middle Ages because this is...
Victorian days,
Well, Victorian days, exactly. Look at the tech industry. They're so up-to-date because it's so new. We've started applying it to the generation that we live in now. And the prison system hasn't been reformed, and it can't be unless somebody genuinely goes in with a big idea like we've got coming on at the moment in the news. But I have to say that education, like Janet says, is paramount. But if you're not a threat to society, it shouldn't even be a consideration, actually, to be locking you up, because that level of punishment is taking taxpayers' money up. And we need to be able to, you know, send them to lectures, send them to running clubs.
But also you want women to come out of prison in a better situation, particularly if they're going to prison because they're committing crimes that are related to poverty, that are related to addiction and so on. Like, they found a brilliant thing that works with sobriety tagging. You know, if a woman's shoplifting because she wants to feed her family, putting her in jail for 6 months is just going to or longer is just going to exacerbate the situation. So really, it's about rehabilitation. It's not about whether women's prisons are closed or not. But of course, women criminals need to go to prison, same as anybody else.
That is what I was going to say. We do have to have a balance to that. I mean, if someone has committed
but when you put a woman in prison, a woman with a family, you're depriving that family. So why are children who've committed no crime being punished for whatever their
and
mother
then the
did.
social care system has to kick in to try and look
and we
after
know
those children. And
You're
we're
also
just in a
affecting generations of that family, because those children are going to find themselves in difficult situations. That's going to impair the way they tackle their own lives. I mean, it's just it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where things are going to get worse, and yet there's no creative thinking, it feels, at the moment around how to change that dynamic.
No.
Well, it's such a small number when you think there's 3,600 women in prison and 90,000 men. I do think that of the 3,600 women in England and Wales, the vast majority are no threat to society whatsoever. And in fact, by releasing them, we save ourselves money, money that can be spent on rehabilitating them in their local community. And, you know, they need to be kept closer to home.
Like we say, the non-violent crime, 70% of female prisoners have committed non-violent crime. But, you know, it is still a crime, obviously, and there will be victims, and there will be a lot of victims watching now suggesting, hang on a second, but you've wrecked my family. You know, whether it is shoplifting, you know, that's my business and my children are suffering.
But, for example, there's a big problem with shoplifting at the moment, because there's criminal gangs that are responsible for shoplifting, and then there are individuals who are in dire circumstances. We've seen the proliferation of food banks and things, and I just don't think someone should be going to jail for trying to feed their kids. And I think we have to make a differentiation.
Christine has a point about going right to the beginning of the incident to be able to try and piece together the people who are victims of those crimes.
And it's the education thing, like you say, Jan. It's almost trying to get to a lot of these vulnerable women before they
support the family,
or make sure they're not going to, or make sure they're not going to commit further crimes when they come out of prison, because it's done nothing for them. It's just kept them banged up for some months, and there's been no rehabilitation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, the mother-baby unit's an interesting concept, though, isn't it? And there is proof within this study, certainly, that it's given the female prisoners certainly a focus and a start to keep the child with them.
And much less chance of reoffending.
Exactly, reoffend. But it's such a big problem, isn't it? That's the issue here, and it takes a good number of people knowing what they're setting out to do.
And imagination.
To remotely try to fix it. But, yeah, very, very interesting stuff today.